something a little bit different from us on Claret and Blue today, as we're going to play a game and chat through some Aston Villa nostalgia. This is Aston Villa squad battles. Let me explain the rules. You must build an Aston Villa 11 using 11 players with 11 different nationalities. Each player will take turns to reveal their picks in a draft-style format. Should your opponent pick a player that you'd planned on using in your side, that means you can no longer use that player and you have to think of somebody fresh. Viewers of this video and those listening on the podcast feed will be able to judge the best side at the end of the show, and you can get involved in the comments or on social media and let us know who won this particular battle. Right, Matt, thanks for joining me. I've just gone through the rules there. Do you understand it? Do you know what we're doing?
Yeah, it's simple. What could possibly go wrong?
We're going to try and build the best Aston Villa 11 possible and go kind of head to head. The viewers will then pick who had the best side, me or you. As you're kind of the guest here, I've come to you with this challenge. I'll allow you to pick one of your players first. And as I said in the intro, the format is if whoever you pick, if they're in my team as well, that means I can't have them and I'll have to make adjustments on the fly. That's kind of, we're thinking on our feet here. The first player, Matt, in your ultimate Aston Villa 11 with 11 different nationalities, who are you going for?
Oh, let me have a little look. Go on, I'll go for Christian Benteke, the Belgian.
Okay. He's not in my side. Wow. So in my first draft of him, he was like, I've seen him loads. I really like him. He's going in mine. Belgium, bit of a niche country. So he was going to originally be in mine, but I changed it last minute. So luckily I get away with one there. He's so good though, isn't he, Benteke? And when me and John did the video a few months ago now, we did like the ultimate Premier League 11. The remit for that was kind of like we've had to have seen them play. The reason we're doing this video and changing it up a little bit is because you get the same old names crop up, don't you, a little bit, and Benteke is one of those, and he's here now anyway. But yeah, such a brilliant striker, wasn't he, Benteke?
I've had to introduce a few people who weren't just known in black and white as well, because I know I'm the kind of old man of the show, but I thought I'd better try and be a little bit current, so I thought he was the one. I thought you'd have him, to be honest, so I thought
in my first draft he was there, yeah.
For people of your generation and younger, he's probably the closest thing you've had to a proper kind of bona fide hero, I think.
Yeah.
Bona fide, is that word? Is it just bona fide?
No, I always said bona fide, yeah, but I've heard you say bona fide before.
Sounds like a good player. It sounds like he'd be a good player to go into this list, doesn't he? Old bona fide.
It's interesting you mentioned about like making it a little bit more current rather than players that were in black and white. A lot of players up until like maybe the 90s, predominantly English, Scottish and Irish, weren't they? Or even in the 90s as well. It's not until we get into like O'Neill and onwards that you've kind of got these different nationalities crop up there. Like, for example, Brazilians playing for the first time. Like, was Wesley like the first Brazilian or something? So, these different nations have only cropped up in the last, 5 years or so. I'll go one of my picks then. I'm going the total opposite end of the pitch and a current player. I'm going Emi Martinez in goal. Unbelievable goalkeeper. The best I've seen in my lifetime supporting. I imagine Bosnich would be a very easy pick as well, given Australian is a niche country as well. Martinez is so good. We spoke about him on a recent episode, well, recent as we record this at least anyway, about where he ranks in the Premier League as one of the best goalkeepers. Where would you have him?
He's got to be up there. I mean, I think the thing that sweetens the deal for Martinez with me is just I like characters as well, and a lot of footballers now are just so almost identikit. I think in a way, and I understand it because it's live their life in the media glare. But I just love the fact that he's got this real kind of air of mischief about him. But yeah, I think he's got to be in the top three goalkeepers in the Premier League. I don't have to. Do I have to tell you whether I've got him or haven't got him? But I don't have to give you. I don't have to give you another kind of Argentine, or I don't have to give you another goalkeeper.
No. If Martinez was your goalkeeper, you now could not have him because I've kind of stolen him. Yeah. The 2 11s at the end will be 22 players, but you don't have to. It doesn't have to be another Argentinian, and you don't have to give me your goalkeeper in return. You can go on your kind of like second most important player next.
It's all going quite straightforward so far because I didn't have Martinez, so you're welcome to him, Dan.
Okay, thank you. Taken.
I thought we need to create some more friction in here. We're all being kind of polite and giving at the moment. I'm not sure that these are in order of importance because it's a team game for me. I don't build this around individuals. This is about a team that's going to be a League of Nations. So I'm going to throw my next one in, but whether he's any more important than my 5th or 7th pick, I don't know. But I'm going to go Ireland because I'm not going to let you steal him off me. It's got to be Paul McGrath. He's got to be in there. I want to claim him before anybody else does. Has that created the tension that we were missing?
That has created a tension that we were missing. That he was in my side. Now, if people maybe are not following along with the rules early on in this episode, I had McGrath in my team, in my draft. I now cannot have him because you've kind of stole him. There's only one version of Paul McGrath. We can't both have him. The easy thing for me to do now would be to pick another Irish centre-back to save a headache. But if I didn't want to do that, I could pick an English centre-back. But if my English player is a striker, that creates a headache elsewhere. So, yes, there is friction now because I've got to do some homework on the fly to replace McGrath on my side. I wasn't lucky enough to see McGrath play, who's before my time, but people, and we've spoken about it before, people say not only is he one of Villa's best defenders ever, he's one of Villa's best players ever. Just talk to me while I scrub him out of my team about how good he was.
It's funny, because I saw I think it must have been on his Instagram the other week that he just had a knee operation. And anybody who knows the story of Paul McGrath knows that his knees have been kind of knackered for many years. And I'm not sure what it would look like, but if Villa ever do revamp the North Stand and put a museum in there, then a little bit of gristle or a little bit of cartilage or whatever it is from Paul McGrath's godlike kneecaps should be in there. But you can trawl back through the podcast to see us eulogising about Paul McGrath. But he was, I don't know, just seemed to glide across the pitch, had a real instinct for danger and how to, probably the most unhurried, unfussed, but resolute defending that you've ever seen. And he gets extra kind of magic or mystique around the fact that we know that he got his demons with alcoholism. We know that he was written off effectively by Alex Ferguson at Manchester United. So it's almost this, how not only was he rescued from the scrap heap, but by doing so, he kind of rescued Villa as well at the time. It was almost like ourselves and Paul McGrath were rejuvenated at the same time. I probably wouldn't fight you for many of the players that we're gonna include in these teams, but I definitely would fight you for that one, and I'm glad that I've got him.
Yeah, I'm not going to go with my McGrath replacement just yet, although I probably am going to stick with somebody Irish to make it easy for myself. So we're only 2 picks in here, and I don't want to readjust the rest of the side. Having said that, I'm going to go with the centre half because I want to get one of mine in because I won't spoil it, but I've got a couple of them in there. I'm going to go Olof Mellberg in my side. Swedish, of course, one of my first heroes. Again, we mentioned Benteke earlier. He was in like the second phase of my time supporting Villa, really. It was the O'Neill era first with the likes of Larsson, Ashley Young, Mellberg and those kind of players. And then Benteke is kind of a hero and an icon came after that. I love Mellberg. I never played football properly in terms of like a kids team or anything, but even like on the school, on school pitches and stuff, I always loved playing centre half and just heading balls away my big fat head. So Mellberg was the one originally. It was like, I absolutely love him, having the beard, the kind of Viking look and everything that came with that. I'll take Olof Mellberg in my side. Does that crop up anything for you or not?
Just you heading balls like Olof Mellberg, that starts to explain why your hairline's heading my way at such a young age, mate, to be honest. So
fair enough.
That's one mystery solved. You've stitched me there. I wasn't going to play. I mean, fair play. I don't know. It'd be interesting to ask Olof Mellberg what position he preferred to play in, because I was going to stick him as a right back. But I know we've tried through his agent and friend Martin Larsson to try and get him on the podcast. Mellberg, he's not interested. I don't know what that was. That was Arnie. Yeah, for all the reasons you say. I think I've shared this before, but he was the first current Villa player. Not that he's current now, but he was at the time that I interviewed at Bodymore Heath. And it was the day where my childhood ambition of becoming a Villa reporter, if you like. I was working as a freelancer, got to interview Olof Mellberg and just got lost in his lovely eyes. Bit of a man crush going on there. God, I've just sliced my... that thing that I broke, that mug? I just sliced my finger.
Why are you playing with it? Nervous? Have I rattled you?
It's just all going wrong, isn't it?
Are you all right, by the way?
Yeah, I'm not going to bleed to death, I don't think.
Okay, good. You dug out my hairline, so yeah, bleed to death. Why not?
Attention that I wanted.
You started it. You mentioned it being a bit of a spanner in the works that you were going to play him at right back. What does that mean for your side now?
I've made the provision of putting a couple of options in there. I'm not going to go with my right back yet. I'm going to go with my left back. Actually, I'm going to claim Wilfred Boomer. I don't want to go for all the left backs because you haven't named yours yet. But my other alternatives, one was Irish.
Well, I'll jump in there. I haven't got a left back. I'm playing 3 at the back. Anyone you say is not going to be spoiled in my side.
Oh, that's okay then. It was going to be. I've probably got Steve Staunton would have been bubbling under. to try and go super current, even though he's only played a handful of games. Moreno, I think, is as an exciting Spaniard would have been in there. But Boomer was just part of, until now, probably the strongest era that we got, really.
Yeah.
I think Boomer was of the time when we were, trying to challenge and do good things under O'Neill. It was unfortunate when he had to leave us, and he got a little bit of everything. He's a good footballer, a good competitor, got a nice kind of cheeky manner about him as well. I don't know in terms of Dutch players. I don't know if we been well stocked.
Can't think of many others though.
We've got Ron Villar, hadn't we? Who for a while,
yeah.
He did good things for Holland on the world stage at the time when he was with us, but never really kind of lived up to the old concrete billing. But so Boomer would be my my left back Netherlands pick.
I'm going to move further into my defence then, because this was the part that I found there were fewer options. I think there's more options going forward to vary up the nationalities when you're talking about building a strong side, at least anyway. So again, another pretty obvious pick, and someone that I've spoken about a lot before, somebody that we've had on the podcast, Martin Larsson, takes a spot in my defence alongside Olaf Melberg. They will be playing in the back three once I work out what I'm doing with the absentee of Paul McGrath. That would have been some back three I'd have built there until you came along and spoiled my plans.
He was good value though, wasn't he? It's one of those kind of... I got to meet him a couple of times and interview him when he was at the club. Always very, very polite, very mild-mannered, but very, Scandinavian focused, shall I say, if that's not too much of an easy stereotype. But I think he was one of the first, or perhaps even the first, that we did during lockdown. He was the loveliest fella in the world. He gave us all the time in the world. I like that. I like the fact when you've seen somebody perform on the pitch and become a hero, but then you scratch beneath the surface and they're actually a thoroughly good bloke as well. So having said all that, Dan, I didn't put him in because I'm not going to come to my other centre-half yet, but I did have another centre-half in there instead of him.
So we've both got three players then. To recap, I've got Martinez, Olaf, Melberg and Larsson, Argentina, Sweden and Denmark. You've got Wilfried Boomer, Paul McGrath and Christian Benteke, Netherlands, Ireland and Belgium. I'm
going to go for my other striker because I want to Bagsy him as well. I don't think this will surprise you. I'm going to go for Trinidad and Tobago's most famous son, other than his mate, the cricketer Brian Lara, Dwight Yorke.
I thought you'd go for him, which is why I didn't, because I thought it'd be a waste of a pick for me to even talk about him. I didn't see him play. I know all about him through you and many others. Special footballer, wasn't he, Yorke?
He really was. And, it's the cliche of playing with a smile on his face, but he just kind of had this confidence that was honed by playing football through the sheer love and joy of it. I think kind of back home in the Caribbean. My only thing I ever say about him, just about him kind of balancing the ball on his head down. I was thinking about this the other day. We talk sometimes, a bit of a segue, we talk sometimes about the halftime entertainment. Just get Yorkie back on and just get him to kind of walk the length of the pitch with the ball on his head. Him leaving when he did, when we thought we were on the verge of becoming something, if you like, very kind of Jack Grealish for a previous generation. Yeah. He was a bit like Jack, then going and winning the treble and being laden with trophies. Dwight Yorke did the same, so kind of vindicated in a way. But it goes back to my kind of better to have loved and to have lost than never to have loved at all. And loved watching Dwight Yorke. Really, really loved it. And it was at the time where I was standing, I had a season ticket in the front row of the whole end. Didn't really have a great perspective of the pitch. But when Villa scored down the whole end, you felt like you were properly part of it in terms of the celebrations unfolding. Back then, Villa was scoring some really impressive goals down the whole end, and Dwight Yorke was either the architect or the finisher of a lot of them.
I'm just looking through the rest of my side, and I feel like there might not be too many clashes here. I feel like I've picked a couple of players that you wouldn't even have considered. Somebody that you might have considered, but possibly not, given that he plays for a country that we have so many to pick from. I'll go with England's Jack Grealish. Seeing as you've just mentioned him, playing the number 10 role in mine. He was out wide to begin with until I changed things up. Said a million things about Jack Grealish over the years, and some of that, some fans will be tainted by the way that he left. Now he plays for Man City, and he's not the same player for Man City. The exciting talent that he was for us. Again, in my relatively short experience of watching the Aston Villa, never won a trophy in my lifetime. Grealish is one of, if not the most talented footballer that I've seen. So it has to be, if I'm building at a best 11, he has to be in there.
Well, yeah, you can Bagsy him, but I actually spent the night with him. That sounds a bit bad. I was actually, name drop alert, I was actually in his box at Manchester City a couple of weeks
Clang.
ago. Yeah, there you go. And he was there because he was injured. He was there too. So there's me, him, and his dad.
That was a wild night, wasn't it?
Oh, it was. Yeah, I was the only one drinking. He was great to watch, wasn't he? You know, I don't think in all the years I've been watching Aston Villa, and what would that be now? Probably
50 years.
Christ, close to 40. Jesus Christ! In all those years, I don't think I've ever seen Villa become a one-man team to the extent that they were with Jack, and that is harsh on the people who played alongside him. Of course, they weren't a one-man team, but in terms of looking to one person for the owner to go to lead you, to kind of set the tempo, to set the tone, I don't think I've seen anybody do that quite the way that Jack Grealish did that, in terms of sweeping Villa up through the Championship during that wonderful, remarkable winning run, and then carrying that on to a certain extent as Villa survived and consolidated in the Premier League, and to do it in such a kind of one-off, unique, throwback kind of way. So yeah, I'll let you have him. I'm glad that he's made it into one of our teams. I'm pretty pleased with the Englishman that I've chosen. Listen, I don't want to create any spoilers, but just if you're a big fan of Danny Drinkwater, just stay tuned.
Are any current Aston Villa players in your 11?
I don't want to give too much away because I don't want you to stitch me up by putting yours in next. But
Okay,
if I'm lucky enough to get them through, then yes, there's a couple.
Okay, all right. It's over to you, so you can go wherever you please.
I might do that now so I don't get stitched up. This is very much kind of honeymoon period territory because he's only been with us a few weeks, but I'm going to put Diaby in there as our Frenchman. As that, you look like you're a...
I said earlier, I didn't think you'd have considered anybody from who even plays for us at the moment, never mind somebody as recent as him. Diaby was in my side as well as a striker. He looks to be a very good player, and I'll let you talk about him in a second. So I thought it'd be slightly different to go with someone like him rather than a more obvious name, the names that we always talk about. I've had McGrath and Diaby taken away from me now, and that gives me headaches.
Well, I think the thing with Diaby is he's fresh enough that the impact that he's made in the first month or so of the season, he's become a fan's favourite, and he hasn't had chance for us to lose interest anymore for his start to wane since then. Me and my son were driving back from a caravan holiday in Wales. Listen, I know. First Jack Grealish's executive box, then a caravan holiday in Wales. I know. We were driving back for the Hibs second leg the other day through the country lanes, winding our way back from kind of mid Wales. Well, the other month, and we were just belting it out at the top of our voices. So I've got an affection for the player. I've got an affection for the song, and I'm quite pleased that actually because you cranked up the fighting talk earlier. I'm quite pleased that I've nicked another one off you.
That's actually really annoying. I'm Googling now French Aston Villa players, see if I can get an easy swap. It's Frederick Gilbert, Morgan Sanson. Who do I get in there? Honestly, that's really throwing a spanner in the works because it's with McGrath. I can think of maybe a straight swap there. He was one of like my different strikers to go with, and I can't just replace him with another Frenchman because we haven't had that many good French players off the top of my head, at least anyway, that are not in positions that I've already spoken about. So yeah, I'm going to have to change that a little bit. I'm getting nervous about my team now that I need to get some names in before you steal them. So
yours can be a five-a-side team if you want. We're going to beat you. If it's 11 versus 11, we're going to smash you anyway. So we might as well smash you with just 5.
You mentioned that there's possibly a couple of current players, so I'm going to get in here and just try and steal another possibly. Douglas Luiz.
Oh, you
is one of my 3 central midfielders. Brazilian, obviously, I mentioned earlier that Villa haven't had a Brazilian until pretty recently, and I think it's fair to say he's our best Brazilian that's ever played for us. An unbelievably gifted footballer who's only got better and will get better over the coming years, hopefully with Aston Villa. So yeah, I'm pretty comfortable having him in my side, especially knowing that he would have been in yours.
Yeah, I'm a little bit gutted that you got to him ahead of me, really, because I think you're right in saying that he is our greatest ever Brazilian, even though little Phil threatened for a while, didn't he? And Wesley threatened during that goal against Everton during a vibrant Villa Park. Been patient with him, but he's become a real integral part of the team now. So you've given me a headache there because I did have him in my lineup.
And as we just said, with so few Brazilians, it's not as easy to just go, I'll just put another Brazilian in there and make it easy for myself. You've now got to find a different player of a different nationality. This is the game. This is the fun of it.
You know, I don't find it fun. I find it a headache that I could well do without. Actually, Daniel. In terms of, I am going to stick with midfield though. Actually, let's go with my. Let's go with.
Look at him, he's on the ropes. He doesn't know where to go next.
Yeah, I did have a reserve midfielder, but I don't know whether it's disrespect to him to have had him as the reserve. I'll say it anyway. I've got Thomas Hitzlsperger in there. Okay. Is he one of yours?
Yeah, he was one of mine. Again, I thought that would be slightly different. I had a look just before we came on, and he's only played 99 games and scored 8 goals. And off the top of my head, I just assumed it would have been more than that because they all seem to do the round so often because they're all so good. He was just on the edge of my time of starting to go properly, so I didn't really see him play too much. But I thought, there's not many players actually who have a nickname after them. Obviously De Hammer for him. As good as some of the players we've had through history, not many of them have got their own nickname. So I thought I was being a little bit different there to get hits in central midfield. Really disappointing. That.
Yeah, I mean, you started it, didn't you? You could have had him if you wouldn't have taken Douglas Luiz off me. Like you say, you probably expect that he was scoring goals every week, but because of the goals that he scored were bangers, you've probably seen them. You see those played. We've had more prolific midfielders, Ian Taylor. James Milner in more, I say recent years, but because of Hitzlsperger's, most of them were screamers with hit ferociously. You do see a lot of it, but I just kind of, again, I like him as a guy as well. Just the fact that he has been so kind of open about who he is. I think he's become a real ambassador. It's a shame that he wasn't able to do that.
Yeah,
as a footballer, I had to wait until he retired. But I think it's, again, as well as having good footballers, you like to have good people as well. So he makes it. I mean, I'm saying all these nice things about him, but he might not have even got in the team if it wasn't for Douglas Luiz. But I'm glad I've nicked him as well.
I'm getting to a territory of struggling a little bit here. So I've got a couple of players that I need to replace because they've been stolen. I've 3, in fact, that I need to replace. So I'm going to get the players that I've not had stolen yet in the side and then worry about the headaches afterwards. So one of my midfielders, I'm going with Stan Petrov. Some of the things that you've said there about Hitzlsperger, kind of off the pitch matters a little bit. Some of that applies similarly to Petrov because of his character and what he went through and what a nice bloke he is and all those kind of things that we say about Petrov. I liked Petrov, and again, Bulgaria, isn't it? So slightly different. So I've got Luiz and Petrov as part of a midfield 3. Petrov can sit a little bit, and Douglas Luiz can pull the strings. I would have had Hits in there as a midfield 3. So I've got to change things around, but I think Petrov is a decent shout, I think.
He is a decent shout.
Is he? Good.
Yeah.
Excellent.
You've left me. I've been taking kind of real joy in the fact that you're going to struggle and you're just going to have to frantically throw, just stick a pin in a map and throw things in. But I hadn't factored on losing 2 of my midfielders, so I'm a bit stitched up there.
I actually think this concept so far is working well, and I've not said it yet, but I'd be interested to see what people watching think they're the best kind of world 11 is. So you can get involved in the comments with those. Obviously, you haven't got a pesky bald man nicking your options away from you, so give us your best 11s in the comments below. I've got 6 players confirmed in my team now, and 3 that have been nicked, and I need to adjust, and I will get to those last, I think. You've also got 6, so do you want to go with your 7th?
So I've got a front 3, I suppose you'd say, of Diaby, Benteke, and York. How many midfielders have I named?
You've got Hits, and you've got McGrath and Boomer.
Ooh, blimey. I'll go for my goalkeeper then, which is Mark Bosnich, which
I thought so.
Probably have guessed, and a lot of the things that we said for Martinez in terms of this kind of larger than life personality, but also a brilliant goalkeeper. I mean, pretty much, I think you can get goalkeepers, can't you, who kind of almost have one thing that they're renowned for, whether it's shot stopping, whether it's command of the box, whether it's distribution, whether it's communication. I think Martinez and Bosnich are similar in the fact that they excel lots of different aspects of goalkeeping. You've not got that many trophy-winning goals. Have you got any trophy? Would he be the only non-English trophy-winning goalkeeper at Aston Villa?
Probably, yeah. Non-British, I would say almost certainly, yes.
Yeah, unless I go and research the ancestry of whoever won the FA Cup in, 1893 or whatever it is. And then I think Bosnich qualifies for a variety of reasons. So, every time I'm getting a player in there now, I'm just kind of breathing a sigh of relief because it's one less.
I'd already picked my goalkeeper and not first in, so I was never going to be stealing Bosnich. You've got your forward line sorted now, so I'm pretty comfortable to keep him in reserve because I might swap him for someone else of his nationality. But I'm going to try and work out how I'm replacing Hitzelsberger now. I had a list of a few midfielders that I considered, and again, it was varying on how many players I already had from that nation. And I was wary of having too many current players, but because I'm making these adjustments on the fly, live, so to speak, I don't want to be here Googling for ages for somebody better. And that's no disrespect on the player I'm about to pick. I'm going to go Boubacar Kamara in midfield as a Frenchman to replace my current would-be Frenchman in Diaby from earlier. And because we're building an 11 that's going to work together as a team, Luiz and Kamara we know work well as a partnership in midfield. That little clip from the Chelsea game of them two combining and Luiz dancing around 200 million's worth of talent in the Chelsea midfield was lovely. Kamara's had a few games that have been hit and misses over the last year or so, but on his day he's a very good footballer. On a free transfer, still a lot of time to grow and develop under Emery. So I'll have Luiz, Petrov and Kamara as a midfield, which is possibly slightly more defensive than I'd like, but considering I'm playing a 3 at the back with no proper wing backs, I probably need that.
They might need to be defensive, given that the midfield options I'm left with now are all going to be super attacking and have probably never played properly midfield in their life. Unless I go for Mustafa Salafu, I think I'm going to have to start loading in some kind of
Carlos Sanchez.
No, I'd rather back my creative players are going to be of such quality that they could even play defensive roles better than the other also rans. You stole Olaf Melberg away from me, who was going to play at right back. So I'm going to go Welsh and I'm going to stick Mark Delaney at right back. And that's probably the story of signing from the lower leagues, in bringing that hunger and desire and taking that into the Premier League, in becoming a mainstay for quite a number of years. Just loved watching him because he played with that real competitive streak. He loved to tackle. Obviously went on to stay at Villa, had a big influence on the academy until a few years ago. So I feel like he's a proper Villa man in there as well. And obviously he would have signed at a time, I think John Gregory signed him if I remember rightly. So he would have signed at a time when Villa were trying to compete as well. So I'd associate him with fond memories.
Yeah, and for the game that we're playing here, that feels like a very kind of smart pick to have somebody who's a decent right back. We're not blessed, are we, in the fullback positions? And when we build these best 11s, we often have 3 centre halves or Olaf Melberg playing right back because we've not been blessed. Mark Delaney is probably the obvious right back pick if you've got to pick an actual right back, and he doesn't use up, for want of a lesser word, a better nation. Like if he was English, you wouldn't want to use Delaney because you'd think of better Englishmen. So to get him in there as a Welshman is a smart pick, so I'll give you that one. In my side, then, I've got to replace Moussa Diaby and Paul McGrath. I can't use another Frenchman to replace Diaby because I've now got Kamara, so I need an entirely new centre-forward. For McGrath, I could obviously pick another Irish centre-half, or again, a totally different nationality. But that's too much to think about at the moment, so I'm going to pick Andy Gray. Didn't see him play. My knowledge of Andy Gray comes through you, my dad, and Jamie Gray on Twitter, who's a very good follow, by the way, for opinions on Aston Villa, the son of Andy. We've had him on the podcast, of course, and he was brilliant on that. When we do these best 11s, it's often Premier League era, so Andy Gray doesn't get a mention. Brian Little doesn't get a mention, and they had this great relationship, didn't they? So Andy Gray's in there, obviously Scottish, a great centre forward. He would have worked great with Moussa Diaby, I felt, in the preparation for this. When I was kind of going through my team on how I replace Hitzelsberger, my other option was John McGinn. Again, value for money, very good player for us. Another current midfielder to play alongside Douglas Luiz. The reason I picked Kamara, but then that would have meant switching Andy Gray as well. So I'll stick with Andy Gray, and he'll play up front with somebody when I've thought about it more in a few minutes. Yeah,
it's interesting sticking on the Scottish theme now. You've almost kind of sowed some seeds with me. Do I claim McGinn and stick him in there? But I'd have to rejig another position.
That's the problem, isn't it? Yeah.
Let's get my defence sorted first. I'm going to go for a Scotsman in Ken McNaught.
Okay, yeah.
I probably picked him because I could have gone if you'd have had him, I could have gone Alan Evans anyway. So I was hedging my bets a little bit, but I never had the pleasure. It's strange. It's strange that this is the kind of path that my career has taken me on in terms of being a mad Villa fan, but then also being lucky enough to cover the club and report on the club and that kind of thing. So I've never seen Ken McNaught play in my life, but he actually became kind of, I wouldn't say a close friend because we don't stay in touch particularly much nowadays, but he used to do a lot of kind of summarising for Villa TV with Jack Woodward and stuff. So we'd travel sometimes to games and Rob Bishop's carpool and that kind of thing. I find it fascinating when you've got warriors on the pitch who are the loveliest, kind of most gentle people off it, really. And from all the stories that I hear of Ken McNaught being so brave and so strong, and it's a stereotype, but typical kind of brave heart, kind of Scottish influence. And then to find this kind of mild-mannered guy who was just a lovely fella. And I think it was important for me, for this team, to have somebody representing our greatest ever Villa team. You're a little bit limited, aren't you? You're talking Scotsman.
An Englishman or a Scotsman, pretty much.
Or Englishman. I think there's always been a Scottish tradition that's run through Aston Villa as well, dating back to William McGregor and stuff. So it was important to get a Scotsman in there. And if you're going to get one in there, why don't you get one who's lifted the greatest prize for us? And one who, from on a personal level, I've got a kind of a lot of affection for as well. So, it weakens my midfield by not being able to parachute John McGinn in there. But I think it strengthens the spine and the back of my team.
Nice.
I think
nicely done.
It creates a nice narrative around it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it has brought out an anecdote and a story, and that's what part of this podcast was going to be. We rather than just picking 22 players and moving on, there's little talking points for each one. So that's really nice. For mine then, like I said, I've now got to replace Diaby and McGrath, and I've been trying to think then. I've been Googling Aston Villa centre-backs while you were talking. I have something in my mind, but I thought, let me just have a look, see if anyone jumps out of the page. So I've got two forwards in mind. One of them I've seen play, and one of them I haven't. And I've got two centre halves in mind who I've both seen play. Now, the centre halves that I'm about to mention are never going to win awards for being the best Villa centre back ever. But that isn't the point of this discussion. It's between a Norwegian and a Welshman for my forward, or picking the easy option of an Irishman at centre half, or switching it up a little bit. I'm going to go with the players that I've seen and replace McGrath with James Chester as my Welshman. Not the best centre-back you'll ever see play for Aston Villa. If we're talking about a Hall of Fame, is he the best defender that's played for us? No. His time at Villa came in the second tier, which is not a time we want to kind of look back on with fond memories. One of the few shining lights of a bad era for Villa, I guess, kind of a Rolls Royce of a centre-half, to coin the old cliche. Another cliche that he put his body on the line for us at a time when, effectively kind of killed his career off by playing through the pain barrier for us, but at a time where we really needed him, and all round seemingly a really nice bloke as well. So I'll replace McGrath with a Welshman and go James Chester, and that rules out me the possibility of sticking Dean Saunders in up front, who would have been a Welshman option, but I didn't see Dino play, so that feels a little bit weird to have two strikers that I didn't watch, but Saunders probably deserves a bit of recognition.
Interesting one, Chester, really, because a lot of love and affection for him. And I know he was involved in the trophy lift for us winning the for us winning the playoff final. But again, it's a bit like when I was talking about Benteke being the silver lining in a really bleak period, hovering around the lower end of the Premier League with Paul Lambert. Chester was one of those, wasn't he? There was a few little, when we struggled to get out of the Championship as fast as we thought, there was still bits like Chester. We saw bits of Jonathan Codger, Jedinak played a part, and you know what I mean? So I think he is, and I think it's important that I think what we've done so far with these two teams is we've tried to, like I say, you can't go back too far to the black and white days because
they're all British players.
Yeah. But I think we've tried to kind of almost reflect as best we can the last 20 years with a bit of a mix. Because you've robbed some of my midfield options in Petrov and Louise, you're probably forcing a change of shape for me. Okay. So I'm probably going to have to resort to what was going to be a 4-3-3 is going to become an old school 4-4-2. What I'm going to do, it's a good job. I think my defence is quite solid. I think I've got defenders in there, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, proper.
Job this midfield's not going to do not going to give him a lot of protection, to be honest, because I'm actually going to play Diaby now on either flank, can swap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've got Hitzelsberger as one of my centre mids. I'm going to now go for another. He's an attacker, really, but I'm going to play him as a kind of wide midfielder, stroke winger. I'm going to put Benito Carboni. You forced me into this. I wasn't going to. Carboni was going to be on the bench, but he's forced his way in just because I can't think off the top of my head of any really solid defensive midfielders that I would want to put in there with that don't play for nations, that don't come from nations that we've already done. So, yeah, Carboni, it was only a kind of short-lived love affair, basically. He wasn't there for very long. Again, probably seduced a little bit by some of the highlights, the goal that he smashed in against Leeds down the Holt end in the FA Cup. He's obviously the standout moment. But I haven't really done much prep on Carboni because I wasn't expecting him to be in there. So if we could move on to your choice.
So we've both got one player each left now, and you went first, so you should be finishing before me. But I must have had two in a row at some point for whatever reason. So what positions left are, you've got a central midfielder and I've got a striker. So unless you're playing a striker in central midfield, we're not going to pick the same player here. So I'll let you go first to finish.
I'm not sure when I first set out on this magical adventure.
Can I interrupt very quickly? Have you had an Englishman yet?
No, this is the one.
Okay. So there's a lot of English players to pick from. So considering you had a midfield shape change and this player wouldn't originally have been here, who's this going to be?
I don't think people who know me, I don't think this will come as too much of a surprise, but my remaining English midfielder is going to be Jermaine Genius. No, it's not. I was really torn between Sid Cowans and my all-time Villa favourite, David Platt. I still am, to be honest. I know I've got to choose one, but it's like if I'm after a midfielder who can actually midfield, is that a verb? Who can actually midfield, then it would probably be Cowans. But yeah, Platt, I've always banged on so much about Platt. Is my favourite ever Villa player.
Seems unthinkable for you to have an 11 built without David Platt in it, but this is the game, isn't it? This has been thrust upon you.
I mean, are we going to get this game on? Are they going to actually play?
Well, it's probably unlikely, isn't it? But if the comments will decide who has the better side, so I suppose you have got to think tactically. Would Platt in central midfield alongside Hitzelsberger work?
Oh God, I'm really torn now. I think I'm going to go Cowans.
Okay, 2 European Cup winners in your side. You can't grumble with that.
It gives we can have an extra star on our badge.
What badge are you having?
Whatever the badge is, we'll do that at a different time, at the end of the season. Let's go with Cowans. He's Villa through and through. He's won the greatest prize. He's had 3 spells at Villa. Also
gets overlooked when we do like a Premier League era one. He didn't play in the Premier League for us, or might have done at the very end of his career, which doesn't count in terms of like when you're saying the best Premier League players ever. If you played a handful of games in it, you wouldn't class that. So Sid Cowans very often gets overlooked in these kind of things. So I think that's a fair shout, more than fair.
Yeah, and like I say, I did get to see a bit of him, not too much. It was probably he's towards the end of his playing days, or certainly the end of his Villa playing days when I got to see him. Again, there's a soft spot, because we got to spend time with him, didn't we, Dan? And he's a kind of really lovely, warm, humble fella, considering what he's achieved and how he'll go down in history as a Villa great. I think I've got, if you were to name, I don't know, the top 5 Villa players of all time, or even arguably the top 2, I think I've nabbed them both.
Yeah, you probably have.
With McGrath and Cowans. So as much as I love Platt, I think another thing that convinced me is because I'm on my own sometimes with people who love Platt, because a lot of people haven't forgiven him for kind of airbrushing Villa out of his CV. And I'm trying to win the vote. Do you know what I mean? I'm trying to, probably shouldn't admit that.
I've got one more pick, of course. So this is me replacing Moussa Diaby early doors. Remember like about an hour ago when I said, I don't think we'll disagree on any more players. I didn't think you go Louise and I didn't think you go Diaby, and that's massively changed my side. So I've got 2 to pick from for strikers. Now, again, we've had a lot of good strikers play for Villa over the history of the club, obviously, but a lot of them are English, and I've already picked those. Andy Gray is my Scotsman in there. So, I could be giving shout outs to people like, someone like a Dion Dublin or an Ollie Watkins even, possibly being in there. You've picked Dwight York, so it doesn't leave me with loads of kind of massive names left. Gabby, I suppose, even. He technically is our Premier League top goal scorer, like you mentioned earlier. But I don't think I'd have him in either, and I can't because he's an Englishman. So it's between two for me, and again, one I've seen, one I haven't. One Pablo, as a Colombian, possibly. Scored some great goals for us. And the other that I'm going to go with, who, again, probably crops up a few times. I don't know whether he could play with Andy Gray, Norwegian, and John Carew. Is how I will end my side. Comes from that era of that O'Neill side of Ashley Young and Gabby and all those guys, and Carew, bigger than me and you, is going to score a goal or two, hopefully against Mat Kendrick's 11. Gets in there to end off my side. Could he play with Andy Gray, do you think, or are they a bit too similar in terms of not being big forwards?
I think they're both intelligent footballers, aren't they? Who have you got supplying the crosses for?
Well, that's the thing. There isn't very much width in this side. So, yeah, maybe that's a bit of an oversight for me. Right, I'll tell you what we'll do now. We'll take a very quick break to rearrange an order of how we see this as a formation, and we'll come back and share the full teams and 11, and then we'll end the show. Right, we've had a look at the 11 players and tried to put them into a proper formation. Yours is a 4-4-2. There will be a graphic on the YouTube version of this video, but obviously for those that are only listening, Matt, do you want to talk through that 11 and where they're playing?
The Wizard of Boz, our Australian in goal, Mark Bosnich. We've got Welshman, Mark Delaney at right back. We've got a central pairing of Irishman and gift to the world, Paul McGrath. Alongside European Cup winning Scotsman Ken McNaught at centre half. We've got Wilfried Baumer, our Dutch maestro of a left back. Then across the midfield, there's a few adjustments made along the way, but I'm going to go with a 4 with a little bit of width with Moussa Diaby on the right, representing France. Benito Carboni on the left, representing Italy. We've got Thomas Hitzelsberger, who's one of the ones I stole off you, with great glee, German, as a centre midfielder, alongside Villa's greatest ever English player, Gordon Cowans. And then up front, we've got two real fan favourites, I think, two real, very different centre forwards, but goal getters and entertainers in Dwight York from Trinidad and Tobago and Belgium's Christian Benteke.
I'll read my 11 then. It's a 3-4-1-2 kind of a 3 at the back diamond kind of thing. I don't know. You mentioned earlier about who's putting the crosses in for Andy Gray and John Carew, and the answer is basically nobody. So this probably doesn't work. I've got Argentina's number 1, Martinez in goal. Back 3 of Sweden's Olof Mellberg, Denmark's Martin Larsson, and Wales's James Chester. It's been a long recording session. In my midfield 3, I've got current players Brazilian Douglas Luiz and Frenchman Boubacar Kamara playing alongside Stilian Petrov. I'm hoping that current connection of Luiz and Kamara can help the chemistry of this side. In front of those, I've got another player that they did play with, or Luiz at least, in Jack Grealish, and then a front 2 of Scotsman Andy Gray and Big John Carew, the Norwegian, as my final pick. Not much width for those players to ping balls into the box and win headers, but I'm hopeful that side will work and maybe win the popular vote in terms of there's a lot of more current players in mind than yours, is kind of what I've gone for. What do you make of the two sides? I know you're going to be biased and say yours is better, but I think we've done a decent job there.
Well, I thought we'd done a good job of that, but eagle-eyed viewers and listeners will have noticed that I only had 10 players in my team. So earlier when I thought I'd skip a go and must have picked 2 players in one go, I'd actually not picked a player at all. So I'm literally working this out on the fly. I've just done the graphic for this and realised that I'm not playing a 3-4-1-2, I'm playing a 3-3-3. So nobody picked the Spaniard, and I mentioned him earlier in Alex Moreno. So I'm going to put Mellberg over at right back instead of a back 3, and Moreno in at left back, which is a bit of a cop-out to our current player who's only played about 15 games for us, but he's an exciting player and somebody that I've definitely rated. I'm actually editing this now just before it comes out, even though we filmed this 2 or 3 weeks ago. And I thought, oh yeah, it's in the bag, it's done. We've picked 2 good 11s there, but I've only picked 10 and Matt's picked 11. So a quick change. Moreno's in my side. I'll flash it up on screen again. bear that in mind when you come to vote, that there isn't 10 players in mine. There is actually 11, and Moreno is in there as well.
I've enjoyed doing that, actually, and my fingers healed. My fingers stopped bleeding.
Oh, good.
So
we've been recording so long, your body's healed itself.
I think my team would win. I do think. I did feel it at one stage when you robbed me of a couple of midfielders. I thought, I'm going to be too attacking here, which I probably still am, but I think my defence is solid enough, and I think Sid's a good enough player to sit deep and anchor if he needs to. There's bound to be some really obvious. I know it's all about bound to be some really obvious random countries that have only got one player, but just so happen to be the best Villa player in somebody's mind anyway. I'd be really interested to see in the comments what people make of all this.
As Matt says, get involved in the comment section. Go over to social media, share your best 11s with us as well. And of course, you can vote on whether my team was better or Matt's. I believe on YouTube we can do a proper poll, which if we can, it will be on screen now. If not, scroll down, leave a comment down below with Dan or Matt, and hopefully if we do another one of these, we can see who came out on top.